There is a single object in our solar system theoretically worth $10 quintillion. Written in full, that's a 1 followed by 19 zeros. So large that if it were somehow split equally among all 8 billion people on Earth, everyone would walk away with more than $1 billion each, roughly 100,000 times the size of the entire world economy. This isn't a theory or a fantasy, it's a real body of rock and metal about 226 kilometers across, drifting between Mars and Jupiter. It's called 16 Psyche, and right now a NASA spacecraft is falling through space toward it. But the strangest part of that 10 quintillion price tag is that the scientist who first calculated it will tell you, without hesitation, that the number is completely meaningless. I'm Arif Hassan, and this is AH History. That figure was first worked out in 2017 by Lindy Elkins-Tanton, a planetary scientist who leads the mission now on its way to the asteroid. Her calculation was simple. Take the amount of iron and nickel Psyche is believed to contain, and multiply it by the current market price of those metals on Earth. The result, roughly $10,000 quadrillion, is the same figure as 10 quintillion. It's a number that stopped being economics and started being astronomy wearing a dollar sign. The combined economic output of every country on Earth in a year sits in the low hundreds of trillions. Psyche's theoretical value is measured in quintillions, roughly 100,000 times larger. The total gold ever mined throughout all of human history is worth somewhere around $15 trillion. Psyche's theoretical value is close to 1 million times that. To understand where that number comes from, you need to understand what this object actually is. Psyche was discovered on March 17, 1852, and named after the goddess of the soul in Greek mythology. For over a century, it was just another point of light in the asteroid belt, the ring of debris between Mars and Jupiter left over from planet formation. It's one of the larger bodies there, roughly potato-shaped, about 226 kilometers along its longest axis, massive enough that its gravity noticeably tugs on nearby asteroids, which is one way astronomers have weighed it from a distance. And yet its own surface gravity is so feeble, barely 1/100th of Earth's, that an 80-kilogram person standing on it would weigh less than a kilogram. It also spins fast, completing a full rotation roughly every 4 hours. Size isn't what makes Psyche extraordinary, though. Composition is. Most asteroids are rock, ice, or a loose mixture of both. When astronomers studied light reflecting off Psyche's surface and bounced radar off it, the signature that came back matched iron and nickel, the same two metals that make up the core of our own planet. That single fact changed everything, because a 200-kilometer mass of iron and nickel isn't just a scientific curiosity or a fortune. It's a clue pointing to a violent history, and possibly a chance to study something we've never been able to examine directly: the hidden interior of a rocky world. The leading explanation is one of the most dramatic ideas in planetary science: that Psyche isn't an asteroid at all, but the exposed core of a planet that never finished forming. More than 4 billion years ago, as rocky worlds were assembling, the heaviest material, iron and nickel, sank toward their centers to form dense metal cores, just as it did inside the young Earth. That early solar system was also a shooting gallery of massive impacts, and according to this theory, one forming world was struck repeatedly, blasting away its entire rocky mantle and crust and flinging them into space, leaving only the naked metal heart behind, orbiting alone ever since. That's why this object matters more than its price tag. Earth has a core just like this, a sphere of iron and nickel roughly 2,900 kilometers beneath our feet, generating the magnetic field that shields the planet. We will never see it or reach it directly. The deepest hole humanity has ever drilled, the Kola super-deep borehole in Russia, took about 20 years of effort and reached just over 12 kilometers before stopping, not even 0.5% of the way to the core. Psyche offers something we can never get at home: a planetary core already lying open in sunlight. Elkins-Tanton, the scientist who produced the 10 quintillion figure, is also the one who explains why it's meaningless, for 2 reasons. First, there's no technology on Earth, and nothing close to it, that could bring an object like Psyche home. It's 200 kilometers wide and hundreds of millions of kilometers away, and dragging it back belongs to science fiction. Second, and more interesting, if we somehow could bring all that metal back, the fortune would evaporate instantly. Iron and nickel are valuable on Earth for exactly one reason: scarcity. Flood the market with $10 quintillion of iron all at once, and the price collapses towards zero. The treasure destroys itself the moment it's touched. The number was never really a price. It was a mirror reflecting how strange our idea of value actually is. And Psyche isn't even the richest object out there. Another metal-bearing asteroid, Davida, has a theoretical value estimated closer to $27 quintillion, nearly 3 times higher. The asteroid belt is full of priceless, worthless worlds like this. So NASA isn't flying to Psyche for the metal. It's flying there for the answer, and the price of that answer is worth pausing on. The entire mission, spacecraft, launch, and years of operation, cost north of $1 billion, roughly 1/10 of the asteroid's imaginary worth. The mission was selected in January 2017, and the spacecraft launched October 13, 2023, from Kennedy Space Center. Rather than conventional engines, it glides using solar electric thrusters that ionize xenon gas, building enormous speed gradually over years. The journey covers roughly 3.6 billion kilometers and takes about 6 years total. On board, it carries cameras led by planetary scientist Jim Bell and spectrometers to identify surface elements, but the most clever instrument is the magnetometer. If Psyche really is the frozen core of a dead planet, it may still carry a fossil of that planet's original magnetic field, locked into its metal since it solidified. Only a true metal core, not ordinary rock, can hold a field like that, so detecting one would be close to a fingerprint confirming what Psyche actually is. The mission passed its hardest test so far on May 15, 2026, when the spacecraft swept past Mars at an altitude of roughly 4,600 kilometers, not to study the planet, but to borrow its gravity. The flyby added roughly 1,000 miles per hour to the spacecraft's speed and tilted its trajectory by about a degree, executed precisely enough that the navigation team called it a perfect shot. Psyche is now on course to arrive at the asteroid in the summer of 2029. For all the talk of a solid metal world, recent measurements have raised a genuinely interesting problem. When scientists weighed Psyche using its gravitational pull and compared that to its size, the density came back too low for a solid ball of iron and nickel that size. Instead, it appears to be riddled with cracks and empty space and made of substantially more rock than the gleaming metal sphere early imagination pictured, perhaps only a third to a half metal by volume. So maybe Psyche isn't a clean, stripped planetary core after all. Maybe it's a broken, rubble-strewn mixture of metal and stone with a stranger history than a simple exposed core. Elkins-Tanton has been open about exactly this. We don't fully know what Psyche is. We won't know until the spacecraft gets there, and she fully expects to be surprised. That uncertainty isn't a weakness in the mission, it's the entire reason it exists. In August 2029, after roughly 6 years and 3.6 billion kilometers, the spacecraft will slip into orbit around Psyche and spend at least 26 months circling it, spiraling closer, mapping every crater and ridge of a world made largely of metal. For the first time, we may get a close look at what could be the exposed heart of a planet that died before Earth was even born. The $10 quintillion was never really the point. It was the bait, a number so absurd it made the world turn and look at a rock it would otherwise have ignored. The real treasure was never the metal we could sell. It was the answer buried inside it, a direct glimpse of the thing hidden at the center of every rocky world, including the 2,900 kilometers of iron burning silently beneath our own feet right now. If stories like this genuinely interest you, follow this channel, because the asteroid belt is full of objects that break our assumptions just as badly, and there's a lot more of this kind of story worth telling properly.